In March of 1993, a Canadian woman would be found on fire inside of her own apartment. Who did it? Hello, true crimerers. This is a true crime in a short amount of time, and it's also another Coldest Cases by Canadian province. Today we're going to British Columbia, and specifically to Vancouver. And this is the case of Jillian Fuller. Viewer discretion is advised. Jillian Blatchford Fuller was the daughter of a man who was a lawyer, and her mother was a psychiatrist. She herself would go on to be a French scholar. She ranked in the top 25 of Canadian speed skaters. She ran on a competitive level, and also she was very good at playing the piano. At some point in her, early to mid-20s, she was battling issues with alcoholism. And so she went to get help for that, and she would meet a man, and the two of them would actually end up getting an apartment together. This man apparently had some type of criminal record, but it wasn't anything along the lines of anything violent. But eventually the man moved out, and then Jillian was just living in the same apartment by herself, and she liked it that way. It was still pretty early in the morning on March 4th, 1993, when a person called 911 because there was smoke and what appeared to be fire coming out of an apartment. And this was on the 8700 block of Granville Street in Vancouver. Firefighters arrived pretty quickly, and they got the fire out pretty fast, so the entire apartment didn't end up getting engulfed in flames. The fire was, stopped before it really caused any severe damage. But when the literal smoke cleared, firefighters did find a body. It was that of 28-year-old Jillian Fuller. Now, the coroner was able to determine that she died of some sort of violent assault. They have never released specifically how she was killed, just that it was an assault and just that it was homicide. And they also determined that the fire was set deliberately, so this was arson, for the purpose, likely, of covering up any evidence the killer may have left behind. And they probably wanted to destroy her body as well. That being said, the assailant, the killer, if you will, was successful at getting rid of any trace of themselves because there really wasn't any substantial evidence collected, like fingerprints or, hair samples or shoe or foot impressions, anything along those lines forensically, at least nothing that the police have actually told the public. So what they had to do at that point was they had to retrace Jillian's steps. They discovered that on the night of March 3rd, 1993, Jillian was at a hotel with an unknown man. And this was the Fraser Arms Hotel, which apparently is this building here, from what I can tell. Who the man was that she was meeting there is still to this day unknown, but she was last seen at the hotel around midnight with this man, and then she went to the pub, which I guess was either next to the hotel or somewhere near it, and she was there until about 1:30 to 1:45 a.m. or so, still with the man apparently. They were seen having a conversation, but no one really heard what they were talking about. Now, from here, Jillian lived roughly a 3-minute walk from the pub, and so she walked home after she left around 1:45. Now, no one knows or can recall if the man was with Jillian when she was walking home or if they had gone their separate ways. They also don't know if maybe they made her plans to meet up at Jillian's apartment sometime after, but literally just a few hours after she was last seen leaving the pub is when the fire was reported and she was found deceased in her apartment. They also determined that there was no forced entry whatsoever to her apartment. There were no broken windows, the door jamb wasn't kicked in. So by all indications, either the door was unlocked and the person came in that way, or Jillian let them in. So they are working under the theory that this was someone that Jillian likely knew at least well enough to openly let them in her apartment. Apparently, 8 months or so after the murder took place, Vancouver police received a letter from Washington, D.C. to someone who lived out there. That's where it was. That's where the address was. Most of the letter has been redacted, but the person who wrote the letter, essentially, from what people understand, is that they were hinting that they knew the person who may have killed her, or at the very least, they asked, hey, have you looked into this person? The writer of the letter also did not identify themselves. Could it be completely just a stupid joke and a hoax? Sure, absolutely. Probably more than likely, yes. You know, it's been a very long time since, so obviously the letter didn't really hold that much significance. It would seem strange that someone living in Washington, D.C. would have, like, this inside knowledge about a murder that took place in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. But you never know. People travel. The only real thing police have was a composite drawing. They made an image of him based on what the patrons at the pub saw and what people at the hotel saw. So this is really the only image they had of the man. But they released it to the public, but they've never gotten any tips from it. At least not any tips that led to anything of value. So now we're close to 30 years later, and this case is still unsolved. They have very few leads. Her family is kind of at a loss because, you know, their loved one was brutally killed, and it doesn't appear that her killer will ever face justice. Did they look into, like, her previous, the roommate that had a criminal history, and other men that she had dated? I believe so, yes. But obviously, I mean, no one's ever been arrested, or they never had evidence to go forward with anything about those men. But they've kept a lot of the details. It seems pretty hush-hush. But the fact that it's still unsolved and they're still to this day looking for tips and answers means that those men probably really didn't have anything to do with it. This could very well be a stranger scenario. Maybe, you know, the man she met was a stranger, and maybe he followed her there, or she told him where she lived, and then the worst case scenario happened. But, like I said, it is unsolved still, and this is still a cold case. If you have any information about the individual as the composite drawing, or if you have any information about Jillian's murder, you can contact the Vancouver Police Department at 604-717-2500. You can also email coldcase@vpd.ca. You can do all of this anonymously, and you can do something to help her family. And that is it for today's short true crime. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, you got plenty more videos to watch here on my YouTube page, long form and short form. So please like, comment, and give this old page the old subscriber-rooney if you like true crime. And if you feel so inclined, you can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter. All of that is in the link tree listed below. If you have cases you'd like me to cover, please email me at mikey@truecrimerer.com, which is also listed below. If you would like to purchase any merch, we do sell some. Also in the link tree below, we do ship internationally, including to Canada. That would imply internationally, of course, Mike, duh. And lastly, if you are a Discord user and you want to join my Discord, it's also linked below. So, all right, well, until the next case, I shall see you later. Toodaloos and Trump crimeroonies. Oh, fudge.